Here's a question. What makes people interesting?
I find you very interesting.
Wow. Well, I didn't mean to be. What makes people narcissistic? Because now I want to ask the question.
I don't know what narcissistic means. I know that people keep using the term a lot lately.
Yes.
So we can get into what narcissism means. What is interesting? If someone's interesting, I find people who are interested interesting.
Okay.
So like you just spent the last 20 minutes asking Neil all about his life. And you were actually interested. And I just thought, what a wonderful human being who's not so concentrated on his own interior world and his comfort and needs. Like, that's interesting to me. Like, you're outward, you know? I like that in people.
So G.K. Chesterton once said, my favorite author, there are no uninteresting subjects, only uninterested people. So everything is interesting. Everything's wonderful. Everything is, but we're just, for whatever reason, we've conditioned ourselves in such a way to not think it's interesting. I think you might be onto something there. Because when people's world becomes kind of narrow, they become less interesting.
I often think my children are trying to remind me how to be human. Peter ran up to me after mass the other day and he went, Dad, did you know you could cut your tongue with a single blade of grass? I just did it.
Did he say that?
That's exactly what he said. And I just thought, you are a wonderful human being. You are in awe of all that's around you. You're interesting.
Yeah. Kids think...
Because you're interested. If you're not interested, then... yeah, you're right. You've just your whole personality has become truncated and narrow.
Chesterton says something like, adults need to read fairy tales because they need to know, like, when the door opens, there's a dragon behind it. But he said a kid is riveted the fact that the door opens. There's such a thing as a door and that it opens. I have this. My sister Laura, her oldest son's named Hayden. And one day, she was telling him, "Oh, be careful around the outlet. You know, it's dangerous." And he looked at it and he goes, "Mommy, that's not an outlet. That's an inlet." I was like,
"That's wonderful.
That is an inlet. Why do we call it an outlet? That's genius." And he was like so perturbed by what she was saying. Like, "Mommy, what?" So
yeah,
it's pretty fun. Reason number 1,312 not to look at pornography is that it makes you boring.
Why?
Well, I just like, what is looking at the naked bodies of people and objectifying them, how does that make you interesting? How does that expand you in any way?
Well, I think to our point, if we're agreeing maybe that the more interested you are, the more interesting you're likely to be, I think pornography makes you interested in a very narrow thing and it blinds you to the entire rest of reality in a way.
I love what you're saying.
Like, I can't even look at a woman and perceive her to be my sister. All I perceive her as this sexual thing. And so it's like my brain is shut down and I'm unable to perceive the whole rest of the picture. Not just in women, but in life. Everything becomes sexual. All my jokes become sexual. I constantly say things like, "That's what she said," and we all kind of snicker. And
oh, I love what you're saying so much. So I have a priest friend, and he was telling me about the difference between an idol and an icon. And what makes an idol is it's exhausted the moment you look at it. Like, there's no mystery to it. So like a pornography is an idol, as John Paul II famously said. I'm not saying too much of the person, but too little. And an icon, like the ultimate sign would be the Eucharist. I can see the Eucharist, and it just looks like a wafer to me, but I cannot exhaust it. I could stare at it for an hour. I could stare at it for 100 years, and I don't exhaust it. So that's the difference.
That's
Isn't
my
that
wife.
wild?
That's my wife. That's how I feel about my wife. I was sitting in my chair. I brought coffee up to her this morning. She's not feeling well. So she has difficulty getting down the stairs. So I brought a coffee to her and I sat in my chair and she just started speaking to me. And I was like, I know this might sound like I'm saying this to sound like a good husband.
Yes.
And maybe I am, but it's still the case, what I'm about to say. I was so struck by her. I just thought, who are you? Like, I've been living with you for 15, 16 years. I don't have a clue. Like, you are so much deeper and more mysterious than I had thought.
That's amazing.
Everything must be like that.
That's amazing.
But we're just uninteresting.
Did you tell her that?
You know what? She was gently correcting me on something. I think my wife's a saint, actually. She struggles with an incredible amount of pain, and she never complains. She's just offering it to our Lord, and constantly. And she was gently telling me, because I have not been great through her suffering. I wish I could be like, I was the strong, silent type who just stood back. But I've just been moaning and upset and like hopeless about the future of like, what does this mean? And you've been sick for so long. And she's just so lovingly saying like, what do you think our Lord is I think he's trying to teach you something through this, but not in an overbearing, awful, thinly pietistic sort of way, but in a real substantial way. And when you see someone carrying their suffering well, that's a person to listen to. If they're
Amen.
not, then maybe there's just spitting cliches. But if they can live suffering well, like my wife does, I'm all of a sudden be like, okay, like, whoa. Like imagine if you could go back in time through a time machine and hang out with like Teresa of Avila. Wouldn't you be like hanging on her every word? That's kind of what I felt like this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm living with a saint. And I was just like captivated by all that she said. Yeah. Now I might forget that this afternoon and be, I probably will. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about the video.